Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. First, thanks for coming to my channel. I really appreciate you stopping by. It helps out the channel a lot if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button before you leave, or if you'd leave a comment. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about things. Today's video is going to be all about using springs in your designs that you make out of wire. And I thought of this because I'm constantly making little springs and cutting off jump rings, but I very rarely use them as design elements. And so I thought it would be fun to try some different designs that way. So I'm going to do 3 different designs incorporating springs. So one will be a pair of earrings, and the other 2 will actually be pendants. So before we get started on that, I would like to thank my YouTube subscribers. We just passed 6,700 subscribers, which is amazing. You guys are awesome and rock. Thank you so much for your support, both financially and all of the nice things that you say. So I also wanted to thank my group of patrons over on Patreon. It's getting to be a pretty good sized community over there. They're a really nice bunch, and I'm enjoying their pieces that they're making and the stuff they show me, and I hope they're enjoying my presence as well. But I wanted to thank them for their support. With those things being said, let's get started on these projects. So this is my design idea book that I sketch out things. I didn't used to do this, but when I started the YouTube channel, I started thinking it'd be nice to have a better plan in mind before I started making projects. And this comes in handy for that. I've just about filled this one up. I'm going to have to break out a new one. These are available in my merch store if you're interested. It's a good way to support the channel. They have a nice grid pattern on them, so it helps you to keep things kind of symmetrical and stuff, which is an issue that I have sometimes. Alright, so I've been coming up with ideas for springs, and I thought it might be kind of nice to have a tube kind of shaped earring with a spring wrapped around it and then a stone hanging off of it. I found, I'm not sure what these are. They might be serpentine or something like that. I found a couple of matching ones in my stones, and I thought they might be kind of nice. They're pretty kind of pale green, and so I'll hang those from there. I pre-made some bezels for that since we're doing a 3 project video here. And I was going to make my own tubes, but I decided I wanted them to be a little bit narrower than this, and I have some 3mm sterling tube that I figured I'd just use. That would be a little bit easier anyway, save me some time. And probably 18 gauge wire for the wrap, and a 20 gauge ear wire. I was going to do, the next thing I was going to do a bail that is made out of a spring. And I've done these before where I just made the spring and curved it a little bit and then soldered it so the solder flowed along the whole length of it. And that was kind of fun. But I was going to try to do something slightly different where I actually spread the rings of the spring out on one side so it kind of flares and curves, and then solder the top here. Now, I did some experimenting with that early on, and I think I can probably pull it off, but I didn't get super good results on the first go round, so we'll see. And then I was originally going to hang stone from it, but I thought we got some stones in this one, so let's just do something simple, and I'm going to just take a textured piece of silver and hang it from there. The other thing is I'll have 2 perpendicular jump rings soldered into the bottom part of this here, hopefully, and then we can hook onto this. Finally, I'm going to use springs for the actual design elements hanging down from this one. This is just going to be a hollow triangle frame, and I'm going to kind of match the bail up here with kind of an inverse version of that. And then we'll hang this off of a bar underneath here and with some different size springs and see how that looks. So I think we'll start with the earrings today. And so I already cut some tubes to the right length for what I wanted. Let's know how long I made these. I just kind of eyeball them, so I don't honestly know. I made these ones about 17 millimeters long-ish. So I need to create a spring that wraps around it, but also sticks up a little bit so I can loop it over on itself and loop it over on itself down there and try and center that over the tube before I solder it on. And then I can add the bottom piece and the ear wire later on. But in order to get a nice thing wrapped around this, these are kind of small now that I've cut them, so I'm going to do it around the tubes that I cut them off because it's a little bit longer and less cumbersome. The best way is I'm going to do a tight spring around it and then pull it open a little bit. I've been having fun with these 3 project videos because it generally stimulates some good ideas in me that I might not have thought of had I not forced myself to think out of the box. So it's kind of nice that way. Alright, that's probably long enough. What we want to do though is be able to grab onto it. I don't know if this will work or not, let's see. It actually worked okay. Well, you never learn stuff until you try things, right? Okay. I think honestly, if I just cut it off about here and solder that on that way, that'll leave me enough at the top and the bottom to loop it around, and then we'll have our little tube spring thing. So that was easier than I expected. See if I can make one that looks pretty similar. I guess I maybe I should run it around the opposite direction on the other one. I think it might matter. I have to think about the geometry of that, but okay, so I've got one there. I used to sometimes do some crocheting of silver, a little fine silver wire. It's one of those kind of things you could do while you're watching TV or something, but since we have cats, you have this little wire end flopping around everywhere when you're doing it. It's really not possible to do when you have cats around. I think that's pretty similar. Okay. I think this is going to be pretty easy to solder these because there's surface contact all the way around, so if I pick up a little bit of solder and touch it right where it's in contact with the tube and the wire, as long as the thing is up to the correct temperature, it should wick along that entire seam. So the trick is getting it all up to temperature at that same point. But we need to flux it first, so let's do that. I'm not sure if these will look cool or not. I guess we'll find out. They seem like in my head that they'll look cool. Sometimes you think things are going to look great, and then when you do them, you're like, oh, it's not as good as I'd hoped. But sometimes the only way to find out is to make them. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. I feel like there's a little one in the middle that isn't quite soldered. Sometimes picking up the little bit of solder is the hardest part about thick soldering. Those little wire ends are kind of exposed out there, so it's easy to get those a little too hot. That's probably pretty good. Let's cool those off and take a peek at them. I'm just kind of bending it so it goes across the center, and then I was going to make this bottom one curl around. I think that might work. Okay, I think that's pretty close. I'm gonna go ahead and try and solder those closed on both sides. And again, I'm gonna pick solder these so that I can try and place things real precisely. If you haven't tried pick soldering, I have a video about pick soldering right there. You can check that out if you want to. It's a good skill to acquire. Alright, here's the little bezels that I made earlier for those. And what I need to do is, I soldered all these closed, but I want to cut one end of these right next to the bezel there, and it should make it pretty easy to just solder it back on there once I feed it through here. The good thing about doing something like this where you're soldering something that's near something else that's been soldered is this is one of the few times where I don't want to heat the entire piece, because I only want this piece to get hot enough for that solder joint to flow. So I'm going to pick up a little extra and I'm going to give it a go and try and get that to solder without. There's likely enough there, but when it starts to flow, I just really want to go. Let's see. Got that so far. So that's ready to have an ear wire put on it and everything after I pickle it. And so I'll do that after I get that in the pickle. But let's do this next one. I had a little bit of slump on the first one, so I'm going to position this so it's not likely to anything to drop off. Still had a tiny bit, but not as much. What I mean when I say slump is this thing dropped down just a little bit, which is fine because I can just bend it back. So, alright, so I'll bend that back and then I'll get those in the pickle, and then we'll get ready for the next one. Alright, so for the second one here, the big issue is I cut a piece of sheet that I'm going to texture that we'll solder some jump rings to. But, and this is 18 gauge sheet. To make it do this, so initially, I think I told you at the beginning, I was trying to separate them out by using two springs, but they ended up soldering together when I was trying to solder the back end here. So that didn't work out too well. I tried it using, on this one, you can see it. I had a little bit better result here, and the way I did that was I used some, this is some 14 gauge wire that was squished to make it wider, and I put a spacer like that between each of them and then just pick soldered on this side. And so I had a little better luck there, but I didn't get them all, and it didn't run the same distance up the seam there because there were slight variations in how far apart the rings were. And so I need to work on that on this next one. So we're going to try it again, and we'll see how it goes. This is some more 18 gauge. I'm going to use these bail making pliers this time. I'm going to try and be as consistent as I can with making this. Pretty good, and I think that's plenty of wraps. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wraps. Might as well just do it all the way to the end. I think instead of using that wider flattened 14 gauge. I have a little bit of 16 gauge square wire. I might try using that to separate these. And I think I made it too long, so I'm going to cut some of this off. Okay, this is my thought process. I don't know if it's right or not, but I'm thinking I'm going to overlap these two ends so they pass each other. This one goes this way a little bit further than that one does, because I'm going to try and hold this right about in that spot and then flare these out a little bit while keeping this part together. That's my plan. Yeah, I think I'm going to cut a number of little pieces of this. I know some people use like graphite pieces to separate stuff that they don't want to solder together. That would probably work too. I don't know. I'm not even sure if this is going to work. I guess we'll find out. Just going to prying these open. I'm jabbing one of these in there. Be able to see what I did there. So I got them kind of spread out. I'm going to leave two on either side, I think, for now. Probably going to try and cut some more solder and flux it and pick a little bit more along that back side and see if I can do it without inadvertently soldering anything the wrong way. Guess we'll find out. Okay, let's see if we had success or not. So we've got relatively consistent distance where it flowed down to, and I can probably make it look pretty good just with cleaning it up with the Dremel. These guys should just pull out, you know, as long as I didn't accidentally solder one in, and it looks like I didn't. So I think we're good. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. I'm going to set that to the side for a minute, and then we're going to do a little hammer on that piece of sheet wherever I put it. Use the peen side of my tracing hammer and just add a little texture to this. I'll probably, after I polish it, since that sometimes smooths out the texture a little bit, I might come back and hammer it again. What I need to do now is solder a couple of jump rings on top of this. I need to either find or make some jump rings. And I think these might be good for the vertical ones coming out of here. And then I need some smaller ones probably to solder to the edge of this. So these ones I think I'm going to solder so that the opening faces sideways and leave them unsoldered. That way I can slip them over the rings that I'm going to try to solder into there, and then just pick solder those spots shut, and then I'll have everything complete. I'm going to attempt this kind of a delicate soldering operation. I soldered these smaller rings closed right where I cut them, and then I pushed those back into the cracks between these ones that I have, and then I stuck this little T-pin in here to hopefully kind of keep things from shifting around too much. I just need to get it hot enough to reflow the solder that is jammed between those rings and should solder shut. Now whether I can do that without melting everything else, we'll see. It is possible to solder these T-pins to the silver. I did that accidentally the other day. I don't think I'd ever had that happen before, honestly. So a little shift there. I had to push it back a little bit. Looks like the T-pin is free, so that's good. Alright. Let's cool this off and see how it looks. It's a little wonky, but probably do a little bending and get it to look okay. I have to add this to my list of bales that are kind of a pain in the butt. Although it might be pretty cool, like I'm thinking so far, so let's see how it turns out. Alright, so remember I need to make sure that which side, this side's the better side, I think. So I'm going to open these up. Remember I soldered them to the side. I should be able to slip those on here. Maybe. There we go. Now on this one, because I have all these moving things here, I don't want to solder this to this thing. I want it to be free swinging. So I'm going to pick solder it again, but because of the heat distribution, I need to get this, I don't need to get this thing hot anymore because it's all done, and I don't want anything else on here to flow. So I don't mind if like these rings drop a little bit or something, but although I'd rather they didn't, so let's find a flatter spot. But I have to get a little piece of solder picked on there and there, so I'm just going to heat this piece only, and that'll get what I want hot, but not get that hot, hopefully. So I missed. We'll double check our solder joints, make sure everything's good, and if so, then we can just pickle that. That's pretty cool. I think it'll turn out nice. Alright, I'm going to throw in the pickle and get on to number 3. Okay, so for this one, I need to make these little things as the spring part, and because we're doing a 3 project, when I did a lot of stuff off camera, but what I did was I made a framework out of 12 gauge square wire. I cut the angles, I kind of had to freehand the angles a little bit, and then I flattened some of that 12 gauge out so it was a little bit thinner and wider, and drilled some holes in it and put some little 20 gauge loops through it and attached that all together. And I made space for a bail, which is just going to be kind of one of these sandwich bails that I make sometimes, where it's got a top for the chain to run along, and then this will just clip over in there like that. Okay, so we'll kind of mirror the shape. This was my trial run here, so basically I wrapped some 16 gauge round wire around a little brass rod, which is this right here, and then I cut off a piece that I thought would be about the right length. I actually made it quite a bit longer, so I cut it down. I want this one to be about like that long, and then these other ones are going to be shorter. So the only other thing I did is I balled up the end of this by just heating it till it melted, and I curled this over the top, and I'll solder it to itself once I put it through one of those rings. So what graphs we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then some extra, right? So got 1, 2, 3, 4, and some extra. So I think we're good. And I wasn't sure if this would work or not, but it actually does. So grab this. I pulled it this way. See if we can get this to melt. I'm making a pile of stuff here. It's getting a little bit out of control. Ball it up a little bit. That'll go right there. This one needs to be shorter. Alright, where's that band at? Everything's still moving around, so that's a good sign. Let's heat it up and throw it in the pickle. Go have some dinner. Okay, and we'll finish them up in a little bit. Get our little pendant here. These earrings came out pretty cool. They look like shock absorbers to me. So if you have a mechanic friend who needs a nice pair of earrings, shock absorber earrings. And then this one, there. So I might need to go back in here and do a little more polishing with the Dremel or something, but in between those wires it's hard to polish. So I'll clean those up, get some better pictures, and we'll call it a day. Okay, well, that was the spring projects. I hope you found something useful there. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. That really helps a lot. I'd also love to hear your thoughts, whether it's video ideas, constructive criticism, or just tell me what you like doing. Leave a comment in the comment section below. Also, check out the video description for some relevant links, like information about my Patreon and how to get there. There's a link to buy me a coffee if you just want to make a small contribution to help me out with supplies and things. There's a link to my website where you can see jewelry for sale, and my merch store where you can buy Chad branded stuff like this notebook that I use all the time. So either way, watch a couple more videos and then come back again. Take care. Happy silversmithing.